Alright, so Season 2 is coming to a close, and with Season 3 rapidly approaching, I thought that now would be a good time to examine the power rankings of the roster. For my tier list, I've organized the categories into Great, Good, Viable, Niche, and Needs Help. Before we begin, I want to make something abundantly clear. I am speaking from the perspective of someone who solo queues ranked. And not only solo queues, but does not communicate with team because of a language barrier. The combat capability of the mobile suits can drastically change when you have 5 other people working in unison with each other, so keep that in mind as we go through the video. Pale Rider. Great tier, decent mobility, solid cooldowns good for a variety of situations whether you're acting independently or with your team, can output a high amount of damage for an extended period of time, has one of the best G maneuvers in the game, the Hades Protocol, which drastically increases the performance of the Pale Rider on nearly every metric. A strong multi-purpose ultimate that can be used to start, secure, or even swing a fight. I think at this moment the Pale Rider is in a good place in terms of balancing. I don't think it needs anything new, it doesn't need anything taken away from it. Despite its placement in Great tier, it's not an oppressive unit that dominates the meta. It's not a particularly mobile unit despite having 2 dashes. The requirement of ADSing for extended periods of time to get value with your primary weapon makes the mobile suit far more stationary than you'd think. Though it has a clear advantage at the mid-range, it loses value on the extremes, whether that's long or close. And unless it activated its G maneuver, it does have difficulty dealing with shield units, so there is room for counterplay. Gundam, my personal mobile suit of choice. Good tier. Solid in every aspect of its kit and inherent qualities, it is the de facto jack of all trades that can flex into many different roles of a team composition. Possessing a stun, a shield, and a beam rifle that does decent damage at the mid-range, there is no scenario that a pilot cannot extract value so long as they are skilled enough. The only real downside is that the Gundam's G maneuver, the Super Napalm Bomb, doesn't have the most impact when compared to the rest of the cast. Though I understand and ultimately agree with the purpose of the shield nerf, I feel that it was too harsh of a change. I think 600 HP or even 500 HP is a more reasonable amount for the Gundam, but I'm also biased, so who knows. Zaku Ranged. Needs Help tier. 800 HP, great mobility with its 3 dashes, the ranged flanker of the roster that comes equipped with a smoke and cracker grenade coupled with the Zaku machine gun, and a decently strong ultimate that stuns any unit it slices through with its Heat Hawk. The Zaku to me is a supplemental mobile suit. Everything it was designed to do is great at supporting the team's efforts, but it doesn't drive the team's efforts. It doesn't dynamically break through enemy formations like the brawlers. It doesn't steadily chip away at the enemy fortifications like the mid-range units. It's not really a playmaker. The intent to me feels like it was designed to pressure the enemy team indirectly by using its mobility to contest the flanks and back line or undefended objectives. Which is fine, it's actually something I prefer. If I wanted something more dynamic, I'll just play Exia or Barbatos. But even in what it was designed to do, it isn't really equipped to do those things well. Despite having 3 dashes, it doesn't have enough mobility to consistently break past and infiltrate the enemy backline. The Cracker Grenade is great for building ult charge, poking at enemy formations, and winning certain matchups, but it doesn't do much in the way of assisting you into advantageous positions. And the Smoke Grenade doesn't last long enough for you to force your way through past the enemy front line. I feel that the Zaku Ranged is too reliant on your allies taking the initiative and creating space that you can play off of before you can start actually doing something. However, the Season 3 buff to the Smoke Grenade leaves me somewhat optimistic. That's actually something I was going to suggest before the mission briefing was released. Maybe that'll be enough to change things, so we'll wait and see. But for now, Needs Help tier. Gundam Barbatos. Great tier. Possesses 2 stuns, great ground and decent vertical mobility that replenishes on kill, has the ability to momentarily take an enemy out of the fight or outright destroy them, can stun combo every unit in the game to death, boasts a thin frame making it difficult to hit, and possesses a powerful ultimate that has an immediate and definitive impact in a team fight. I think the Barbatos is fine. I think it is exactly where it needs to be. It's an impactful unit, but it doesn't dominate the meta. It's not an insta-pick for every map or mode. It has room for counterplay. The community at this point has acclimated to its presence. Even when played to its absolute best, there are still some things that it just cannot do. So I think at the moment, it's fine. Sazabi, the main tank of the cast. Viable. Solid damage in its engagement range, surprisingly mobile despite only having 1 dash thanks to its homing boost, comes with a fairly fast stun with the Beam Tomahawk, decent AoE ultimate with a massive range, big health and shield pool, and is in possession of arguably the best utility cooldown in the form of enemy search, giving you and your allies wall hacks for a short duration. Sazabi on paper sounds great, but the problem is that most of the cast has a way to circumvent or just outright break through the shield. Also, 1400 HP for the shield is not as much as it sounds. Your huge frame and presence are going to get the enemy's attention, and they know to blitz you down before you can get in position to do anything. However, Sazabi is in the viable tier because if for any reason the Sazabi has the slightest advantage in an engagement, then it's very likely they're going to win that engagement. Give a good Sazabi an inch, they take a mile. If there is a break in the formation or a moment of weakness and the Sazabi decides to take advantage of it, then you have to back off or your team could very well crumble then and there. I'm at a bit of a loss with changes to the Sazabi. This really feels more like a roster problem as opposed to a Sazabi problem. There are just too many good units with stuns and ways around shields, and most of those units are very popular with the player base. If there's anything worth looking at for Sazabi specifically, it'd probably be tuning the mobility of the mobile suit when the shield is deployed, or potentially dampening, but not outright negating the effect stuns have on a Sazabi while it's using its shield. Methuss. Good tier. A mobile transformable support unit that directly heals its allies. Capable of putting out a surprising amount of damage thanks to its turret, its beam arm guns, and twin shot, especially at close range. Its G maneuver improves the performance of the unit it is healing. Not much to really say about this mobile suit. Solid support unit, more than enough damage to defend itself and poke at enemies alongside its allies, great vertical mobility, can res from a distance, increases the survivability of the team, can swing a fight through positioning and clutch ability usage alone. Only change I would want is to add a way for the team to ping the Methuss if they need to be healed, otherwise I think they're fine. GM Sniper 2. Niche. Niche, but strong in its niche. A sniper unit that can also assist their allies with various support abilities. Jump Pad opens up alternative routes of engagement for the whole team. Possesses a long-range res gun, which is great for those moments when an ally has been picked off but was able to dive behind cover in time to protect a disabled mobile suit. The GM Sniper is also capable of firing Vulcan pods that act as a close-range deterrent. For its ultimate, it activates a map-wide scan that reveals the location of every enemy on the battlefield for a short duration. This unit doesn't really see a lot of play beyond certain maps that feature long open sightlines, and even in those maps, the GM Sniper only sees play for a set period of time until the game has advanced beyond specific locations. I think the GM Sniper should have a charge mechanic like Widow does in OW2 or the Sniper in TF2. I don't know if this is a hot take, but I think it's ridiculous that the Sniper can one-shot 15 out of 18 mobile suits in the roster. I'm willing to bet that the developers think it's fine because Sniper's usage and pick rate aren't that high. I also think that maybe they think it's fine because everyone has inherent mobility that allows them to take cover quickly once they know a GM Sniper is in play. It could also be that if you close the distance against a GM Sniper, they don't have any real way of defending themselves. I still think it shouldn't be capable of its one-shot, but to each their own. Asshimar. Good tier. Good mid-range weapon if you got solid aim, great vertical mobility allowing it to easily take off angles and flank routes that other mobile suits normally can't, fast charging ult stun that can quickly take units out of the fight. Napalm is great for harassing shield units or harassing enemies who are dug in on advantageous positions. Its only real downside is that it doesn't output as much damage in comparison to other mid-range units, so it makes up for it by being able to take advantageous positions easily with its mobility and whittling the enemy down from a position of safety until they crumble from the pressure or are forced to disengage, giving up space. If I'm being honest, I don't really think the planned buff for Asshimar was necessary. It's a welcome addition nonetheless, and I personally don't have anything I would give or take away from the Asshimar. Dom Trooper. Great tier. Support unit capable of putting out an incredible amount of consistent AoE damage. Suction mines give it a form of map control and can act as an early warning system alerting the Dom Trooper to enemy rotations. Armor Gun gives a significant amount of survivability for your team, keeping them alive whether they decide to engage or disengage from the enemy. In possession of one of the best ultimates in the game, the Screaming Nimbus, upon activation, the Dom Trooper charges forward, granting armor and increased movement speed to nearby allies, while knocking back and damaging any enemy it comes into contact with. Strong support unit that still sees a lot of play despite the nerfs it has received, not super oppressive though. Its low mobility does a lot to rein in the potential of the Dom Trooper. If I was going to change anything, I would make it so the cooldown before you can damage a unit again with your Screaming Nimbus is increased. In that way, you're encouraged to disrupt as many people as possible as opposed to singling one mobile suit and taking them out of the fight. Otherwise, I think they're fine. Turn A. Great tier. Powerful mid to long range mobile suit that is capable of finding value whether it plays with or independently from its team. Nanoskin allows it to stay in the fight for longer, and the overhead throw allows the Turn A to break through shield units or stun any mobile suit attempting to push it away from its position by pressuring up close. Also possesses the Moonlight Butterfly, one of the best, if not the best ult in the game, capable of completely wiping a team if used correctly. Turn A dominates the point capture modes. The design of point capture maps is structured in a way that makes it easy for Turn A to get value. Long, open sightlines that are perfect for taking advantage of the beam rifle's damage and penetration. And because point capture maps encourage people to crowd around certain areas, it's easy for the Turn A to single out a location and concentrate most of the Moonlight Butterfly's duration there. In terms of changes, I want to say increase the amount required to activate the ult, but that doesn't really solve anything. The existence of the ultimate itself is the issue, and also that there's no real counterplay unless the Turn A is intentionally choosing to fly close to the ground, where it's easier for an enemy to hit, or stun it out of the ult. A possible change I was thinking of is to give the Turn A burst of speed as it ascends, but then reduce its flight speed afterwards. This gives people more of a chance to scatter when the Turn A pops its ult, or even potentially shoot it down if it was used recklessly. Also, in regards to the overhead throw nerf, the reduction in damage doesn't accomplish its purpose. If the Turn A Gundam lands the overhead throw on a unit with 800 HP, they're going to secure the kill no matter what. A nerfed overhead throw, followed by a charge shot to the head, immediately followed by a shot anywhere to the mobile suit will result in over 800 damage. So what's the point? Out of all the changes, this is the one I feel like they really missed the mark with, at least when taking into account it was supposed to help a specific part of the roster. Guntank. Woo! Good tier. Support platform that can continuously pressure an enemy team or concentrate fire on a single enemy if so desired. Surprisingly great at 1v1 duels thanks to its cooldowns, easily racking upwards of 1000 damage assuming all of its abilities land, can quickly repair disabled units on the field, drastically changing the outcome of a fight. Solid multi-purpose long-range ultimate that can be used to start, secure, or swing a fight. However, if caught without any of its cooldowns or support from its allies, then it will crumble to most of the cast. No changes to the Guntank. I think it's fine. GM. Good tier. Close range support shield unit equipped with a variety of cooldowns that enables your team and pressures the enemy. Remote Napalm is good for forcing the enemy to back up. Repair Grenade is great for increasing the survivability of you and your allies. Shield Bash is particularly useful for 1v1 duels and powering through certain stuns. Homing Mines are great for pressuring a specific point or locking it down from the enemy. When used well, the GM can probably win a 1v1 against almost everyone in the cast. I personally didn't think that the GM needed any buffs or nerfs, so I'm surprised that the devs opted to give them 900 HP and also buff its shield bash. With the exception of the Sazabi and the Zaku Melee, I was confident that a good GM could beat any mobile suit in a duel with solid mechanics, and if it was in possession of all of its abilities, even against Barbatos and Exias. At the very least, it can pressure an enemy enough that they're forced to back off. I don't know how much of an impact the changes are going to affect the performance of the GM, but they can only improve on what is already a solid unit. Marasai. Oh boy. Originally, I was gonna place the Marasai in the viable tier under the caveat that its performance is extremely volatile, because it's all centered around the ensnare combo. But with the recent balance announcements, I'm not actually sure where to place it anymore. See, the devs are planning on decreasing the cooldown of the ensnare so it can be used more often, but they're also significantly decreasing the damage down to 10 points. There is also a minor damage reduction to the beam blade. If you math it out, then that means the ensnare, blade, and headshot combo will only do 650 damage, practically neutering the Marasai we have all become familiar with. Now, I might be wrong about this, but I believe in the mission briefing they called the Marasai changes a soft rework as opposed to a nerf. Taking into consideration the language they used when discussing Gundam Hyperion, It looks to me that the developers are currently trying to create and reworked ranged mobile suits so that the ability to break enemy formations is not solely in the hands of the brawlers. The Marasai as we know it is dead, but it remains to be seen if this team-based utility disruptor Marasai has a place in the future landscape of the game. We won't really know for sure until all 3 planned mobile suits have been released. So for now, I'm placing the Marasai in the I don't know tier. Exia. Great tier. Fragile but dynamic mobile suit capable of breaking enemy formations in melee, unparalleled vertical and lateral mobility allowing it to easily outmaneuver enemies, powerful ranged projectile daggers with minimal fall-off damage that work on a cooldown as opposed to a magazine, transformation ult significantly increasing its already exceptional performance. There's only like 1, maybe 2 maps that the Exia struggles to find value in, but even that can be overcome through player skill. In the right hands, this mobile suit is swift, accurate, evasive, and devastating. I don't really know what you can do to balance the Exia that doesn't just outright hamstring the capabilities of the unit. Exia follows the design philosophy of my least favorite balancing method, where a high execution barrier gatekeeps the player from maximizing value. But if you theoretically did break that execution barrier, then you possess an unbelievable amount of power in comparison to the rest of the cast. The problem is that in this day and age, there is totally going to be someone that will chip away at that execution barrier. So now we're in this weird situation where I don't really see a middle ground with the Exia where the high skill ceiling is properly rewarded. Because if you nerf it too hard, you're working so much for so little. The only thing that I'd be comfortable doing is adjusting the damage numbers or even the mechanics related to the daggers. Maybe give it an actual magazine as opposed to making the whole thing cooldown based, and maybe even increase the fall off damage some more. I don't know. Mahiroo. Niche tier. Area denial mobile suit that comes equipped with rendo grenades which outputs immense amounts of indirect damage. Its sensor dome ability marks enemies through the terrain, allowing it to more accurately place its grenades. It can mark a location in which after a brief delay an explosion occurs at the targeted area, stunning and damaging any unit caught in the blast radius. And it can knock enemies away with a dashing melee attack which doubles as a vertical traversal ability. Its ultimate doubles its grenade output and effectively seals a location away by pressuring an area with numerous explosives. With the mid-season update to Mahiroo, I think this particular mobile suit has carved out a place for itself in Gundam Evolution and is in the same position as GM Sniper. It's really strong on certain maps and modes, and within those maps, it's particularly powerful at certain points. Once the fighting has advanced past those points, people tend to swap off. I don't really think the buff to the Mahiroo was necessary. If the intention was to increase the pick rate, then I think you need to create more maps that lend themselves to the Mahiroo's strength. I don't think the issue is with the mobile suit itself, at least not anymore. Regardless, I'm sure Mahiroo mains are happy to receive a buff to their primary weapon and ultimate. Zaku Melee. Needs help. Zaku Melee is the last of the brawlers that have been currently released. It's equipped with a large heat hawk that it can use in conjunction with its various abilities to damage enemies close to it and somewhat at the mid-range. It can raise its guard and from this position tackle into enemy units, damaging them and disabling their shield. It can also render itself completely invulnerable at the cost of freezing itself in place. All the damage it gives and receives charges its rage meter, which upon filling can be consumed to activate Zeon's rage, temporarily buffing the unit with armor and increased damage. For its ultimate, the melee Zaku can use its large axe to repeatedly swing in a circular fashion, knocking back and significantly damaging any units caught in its path. I was bouncing back and forth between viable and needs help when it came to the Zaku Melee, and ultimately I put it in the needs help tier. Zaku Melee differs from Exia and Barbatos as a brawler because it is designed for continuous forward pressure. You're constantly being walked down by a Zaku Melee and being forced to give up space with a combination of consistent damage and survivability which feed into turning it into more of a threat. The issue is that there is an abundance of support units that hamper how much of that pressure actually makes an impact during an engagement. On top of that, tanking and doing enough damage to activate Zeon's rage is kinda difficult now. It's been 2 seasons and people have adapted to the Zaku Melee and its shenanigans. The one thing it had going for it was the synergy when it raged during its G maneuver, but they took that away. People are also keenly aware of your survive cooldown and know to just not shoot you when you use it. Even worse, they know to punish you for it and actually set you up to die if you use it thoughtlessly. The guard ability doesn't really do much in the way of damage mitigation, and with only 2 dashes, you just don't have the mobility nor the survivability to walk people down. I don't really see the upcoming buffs to Zaku Melee changing much, because the problem in my eyes is that it's difficult to build rage to begin with. I would change it so that guard tackle pushes you further forward so that you can more easily close the gap. I'd also look into making it so that melee hits with the axe significantly increases the amount of rage generated. I also think in rage mode the Zaku Melee should move faster while it's active, but even with all those changes, the Zaku is still probably going to be overshadowed by Barbatos and Exia. Unicorn Gundam. Great tier. The support mobile suit that is equipped with some serious firepower. The Psycho Frame passive allows it to constantly heal any nearby allies, and upon activating the ability, it can buff itself and the team with temporary armor, significantly increasing everyone's survivability. Their Shield Funnel and Beam Gatling Gun puts out a significant amount of damage. The Beam Magnum is a decent transformative ult, capable of putting out solid pressure and penetrative damage, but it does render you immobile for a brief second, which some people will take advantage of. The Unicorn Gundam is powerful. It can find value in any map, any mode, and any team composition. The amount of healing and damage mitigation it does is insanely high, and it can kill most of the roster as long as it has its shield funnel at the ready. Strong, but not oppressively strong. It is held back by its low mobility, tall frame, and low base HP. I think the one change I would give the Unicorn Gundam is to reduce the damage on the shield funnel and increase the knockback. I think the mobile suit having as much kill potential as it does for its role as an AoE healer is a bit much, but considering its slow mobility, it still needs a way to defend itself when suddenly pressured up close. So the increase in shield funnel knockback ensures that there is a consistent way for Unicorn Gundam to create space when suddenly pressured, discouraging its enemies from recklessly attacking the mobile suit. New Gundam. Niche. The featured mobile suit of Season 2 boasting Psycho Frame and Funnel Tech for a balance of offense and defense. A mid-range unit with 1 dash, high health, and abilities that all tie to its funnels. The new Gundam's passive allows it to mark enemies with a funnel tag. More tags result in more funnels that are sent out to attack the enemy upon ability activation. Its ultimate, the Fin Funnel Barrier, deploys an energy shield shaped like a pyramid that completely blocks any projectile from the enemy team. The new Gundam and its allies are capable of shooting through the barrier while it is deployed, and has the added benefit of sending out a single fin funnel to attack enemies within range during the duration of the ult. However, the barrier isn't impenetrable. The new Gundam can still be affected by mobile suits that manually breach the barrier, closing the distance through mobility or melee abilities. You know, the trend is that the newest unit in an ability shooter is naturally going to be OP, but this wasn't the case with New Gundam. I initially thought it was the weakest mobile suit, especially after the mid-season balance change, but I've come around and feel like it's a decent mid-range alternative for certain maps. It does solid damage with its weapon and abilities, and its ultimate is effective when attempting to coordinate a push, especially on destruction maps. With that said, I do think it needs some buffs to its overall movement speed and even its ADS speed. Everything it does is so sluggish in comparison to the rest of the cast, which hurts even more when you only have one boost gauge to rely on. Otherwise, it's just too big and too slow of a target to find reliable value in most maps and game modes. And there you have it, my personal end of season tier list for Season 2 of Gundam Evolution going into Season 3. I hope you guys are excited as I am to see how much of this tier list is turned in on its head once all 3 units of the next season have been released. But that's going to be it for this video for now. Hope you've enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you all in Season 3 of Gundam Evolution. Hey, thanks again for tuning in, appreciate the support. Feel free to check out some of the other videos on my channel. If video essays and reviews are more your thing, then head on over to my alternate at youtube.com/Xanthem. Either way, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!